Thank you for doing this. Welcome to the Rise and Above podcast. How are you doing today, Angela?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You are all the way on the West Coast. You're in California. Where at in California are you?
Yes, I'm right near Universal Studios, so not too far from there.
Oh, very cool. How do you like it there?
I love it. Like I was born in California, then I was raised on the East Coast, so I always consider myself half and half. If you're from the East Coast, you'll know that little slang. But yeah, so I love both. Like I love the weather. My family's out here, but I miss the people in the East Coast. So I wish I could have the best of both worlds and mix them.
What would you say is different about the people on the West Coast versus the people on the East Coast?
Well, out here they're very sensitive. Very sensitive. So I like the bluntness. When you read my book, it's very blunt and to the point. And I know a lot of people can't take so much, given to you at once. So that's what I miss about the East Coast. It's just the people, you could talk to them anyway and they won't get offended.
I understand that, especially in today's day and age, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. When did you write your book? When did that come out?
It just came out last year.
Okay.
I've been wanting to write it for years, but I knew when I came out with it, it was going to cause problems within my family. So that was what took me so long to write it. But I've been wanting to write it for like over 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that. I don't want to spoil it or anything for anybody, but yeah, so that's crazy. Your book is called Black Butterfly, right?
Chasing Black Butterflies.
Chasing Black Butterfly. I'm sorry. All right, so yeah, let's get into your story a little bit. You were born and raised, you were born in the West Coast and raised in the East Coast. What made you move back? Where does your story begin?
Yeah, so my book talks about how what the things I went through as a child. Just I'm gonna dive right into it. So I don't know.
Please do.
So I was molested at an early age, around 4 years old, and then I was raped by 15. And me and my mom, we had a trouble relationship, and we were always fighting. And she was always kicking me out the house. So I was always on the streets, back and forth in the house. So being on the streets, I definitely ran into a lot of trouble. And then I ended up meeting a pimp who was actually I met him in church, believe it or not.
What a place to meet somebody.
Right. I was trying to get my life together. I was, always getting in trouble. And I went to go live with another family and I wanted to get my life together. And then I feel like that's when things happen. When you're trying to get your life together, then something bad will happen. But anyways, I met him at church. Of course, I didn't know right away that he was that. But we ended up in a 2-year relationship, and he was very abusive and controlling, and I seen a lot. So the reason why I actually ended up escaping from him by joining the military, and that's how I ended up on the East Coast.
Okay. Now, I just actually last weekend watched a show called Trafficked. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, but I'm very familiar with Trafficking.
Okay, so there's this documentary series. It's called Trafficked, and they do like a bunch of interviews with a bunch of people for like different things. Like one of the things was human trafficking and like pimps and stuff. And they interviewed women and pimps, and the pimps were like, yeah, the women can come and go whenever they want. I'm not going to stop them from leaving, but they'll have something to remember me by if they decide to leave. Is it like that? Is it a scary thing to try to get out from under the control of a pimp?
Well, I read so many different stories, so I feel blessed that I didn't go through as much as some of the other girls went through. The guy that I dealt with, he was very charming. I've never seen him hit another girl. It was always against me, and when I was looking at another guy or when he thought I was lying to him about something, he never tried to actually pimp me out. I think he was trying to mold me into that. When I met him, I was 16 and he was 24. I thought he was 18. When he told me he was 18 when we met. So I thought we were boyfriend and girlfriend. I had no idea what he was actually trying to do. So in our relationship for the 2 years that I was with him, it was more just about me learning what he was doing and just him just controlling me and not wanting me to do anything without his consent or knowledge. So yes, for me, leaving was very hard. Like he would threaten me. We would get into fist fights. He would threaten my family. If I left him, he would hurt my brothers, stuff like that. But as far as trafficking, I never seen like the girls that he had. It was more their consent. Like he would meet strippers and stuff like that and say, hey, if you want to make some extra money, I know these clients. And it was more like, I don't want to say upscale because there's nothing upscale about it, but it wasn't like sleazy hotels or anything like that. It was, you know, penthouses at the Marriott kind of things. And they would meet there and have parties and stuff like that. And that's how he would make his money. So yeah, I'm fortunate that I didn't see, too many bad situations, but I did talk to the girls. I did become close with some of them because, I was always curious. Like that was like, how did you get into this life? And at first coming into it, being so young, I used to not say that that's what I wanted to be, but I just liked how they were making so much money and the freedom that they seemed like they had. But I mean, of course, as I got older, I'm like, there's no way I would want to have that lifestyle. But yeah, so I did talk to a lot of the girls, and a lot of them, it's sad that a lot of them were abused at an early age. So it definitely changed my perspective on those type of women. I feel like people are so judgmental, like, oh, they're just this and that. But a lot of them have been through stuff, and nobody knows how you would react to those things until you've been in that situation. So
Well, I think it's easy for people to be like, oh, well, I don't understand why those women would want to engage in such behavior.
right,
But a lot of people don't realize what kind of past they have. And then
right.
when a man comes into their life, like somebody who's a pimp, and offers them what you would say freedom, they're like, okay, you know what? That sounds like that's exactly what I need. I need somebody to care about me, take care of me, and help me provide a living for myself.
Yeah, the way he did it, he made it seem like he cared about you so much and that you were number one. And he made me, even though I was around so many beautiful women, he always made me feel like I was the prettiest girl in the room, even though there were so many other beautiful women. So he definitely had a way of charming. I mean, he even charmed my second mom in church for us to even go out in the first place. And she's very strict and very religious. Like I wasn't even allowed to watch music videos,
Wow.
because it was secular music.
What
So the
what kind
fact
of
that
church? I'm sorry.
uh-huh.
What kind of church did you grow up in?
It was a Baptist church
Okay.
out here in California. So yeah, the fact that he was even able to convince her that he was a good guy and that, oh, you should let me take your daughter out on a date and we'll go to Bible study kind of thing. And it was not the very first date we even went on. Like he took me to a hotel to go pick up money from a client he had. But at the time I had no idea. I was just like, what are we doing at a hotel? And then I seen him go and a man answered the door and a girl from church was actually the girl in the room. So I was just like, I was just
Wow.
so confused on what was going on. But
How does that even happen?
um, you mean how did the girls get?
I mean, how does somebody go to I grew up in a Baptist church, and I
Mhm.
don't know about the Baptist church you grew up in, but for me, it was like what they call fundamental Baptist. So it's like real strict. Like some of the women wear most of the women wear skirts and dresses, and you can't wear pants and stuff like that. So how does that even happen? Whereas like a pimp can come into the church and start pimping out women in the church.
Well, one thing I learned now that I'm older is I'm very spiritual. I'm not religious anymore. I don't
Okay.
believe in religion because of the simple fact I feel like it is a cover up. Like it's not what you like to me. I mean, I'm not trying to
No, 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 you're fine.
judge anybody's preference, but as far as for me, I just do feel like there are so many secrets that go on in churches. I mean, even with Catholic churches, and if you read a lot and learn a lot about trafficking, a lot of that stuff happens through churches. um so it can happen, like just because it's about God doesn't mean things. can't happen like that. And not only that, I feel like too, people in church are very vulnerable.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, they're looking for something. They're trying, and I feel like those are the easiest people to prey on, actually.
Yeah, and they want to be part of a community. And when somebody comes and is accepting and they
Yeah.
want to pull them in, they're like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, he found me at one of my most vulnerable states. Like I was, I never liked church growing up because I felt forced. But at that time, I'm like, you know what? Let me get my life together. I want to go to church. I want to be better. I want to be, get my life together. So that was just like the time that he got me. It's like right at that time.
So let's kind of go back a little bit. You said you were bouncing from house to house and you were on the streets. What was that like? What was that? Because you were just a teenager.
At first, it was fun because my mom. I wouldn't say she spoiled us very much. Like she raised 3 kids on her own. So her way of showing us love was through material things. Like she never told us she loved us or was very affectionate, but she always gave us whatever we wanted. So we grew up very spoiled. And then as I grew into a teenager, when she would tell me no, I'll be like, what? Like if I wanted to go to a party, she'd say no. I'll be like, I'm going anyway. So I would sneak out. And when I would come home, she'd lock the, windows and I couldn't get out. And then at first I'd be like, okay, fine. I'll just go out and hang out with my friends. But eventually, after months of doing that, people get tired of you crashing at their place, especially parents. They'll be like, she needs to go home with her family. Like, what is she always doing over here? So then when me and my mom would get into more serious fights and she would put me out, I would have nowhere to go. My friends their parents wouldn't let me in anymore, especially because my mom, if I was gone for a certain amount of time, she would call the police. And the police would go to my friend's house and say, hey, you can get in trouble if you have a runaway at your house. So a lot of them didn't want to take me in because of that fact. So eventually I would end up, meeting guys on the streets and hanging out with them. I'm so surprised I'm still alive. Out of all the things that I've been through, no, seriously, like I would just walk down the street, a guy would drive by and be like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing, and get in a car and go hang out with them.
Wow.
I'm just so surprised. Like I wasn't trafficked, or anything like that. But yeah, it was crazy. I definitely been through a lot, seen a lot. I would hang out with gang members. That was my, I was always attracted to that lifestyle because I felt like they did whatever they wanted at a young age. So I was fascinated with that life. But I learned the hard way that.
Did you ever get in any? What's that?
I know, I was just learning the hard way that things aren't always what they seem.
This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth. Well, and I think that's important too. And I think it's important to learn that at a young age. I mean, because a lot of people get involved in that lifestyle and then they don't get out. But obviously you were able to experience it at a young age, and then you realize that you didn't want this, and then you change your life for the better, correct?
Yeah, I think with me too, not growing up with a father, like I had 2 younger brothers, and so both of them had their fathers in their lives at some point. And my mom always was so secretive about it. So I think that's another reason why I always seeked male attention and was longing for something. It's just I had this emptiness in my heart. And that's why I think I was attracted to older men at a young age. Like it's crazy, like back in the 90s and how many older men got away with dating with younger women. I don't know. It's just looking back on it, it was okay back then where not okay for the law, but as far as my friends were like, oh, you're dating an older guy, how cool, kind of thing. Not
Right.
like now it's like, that's disgusting. So
Yeah, I mean, and now we have technology and social media to help like bring awareness to all that, and it's real looked down upon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm grateful with social media as far as bringing light to everything.
Yeah,
We get to see so many things that actually go on, all that have been going on for so long. So
right, for an enormous amount of time.
yeah, yeah,
How
definitely
how
awareness.
how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 41 last week, so
You're 41? Wow, you don't look, you look like you're in your 20s. That's crazy.
no, I get that all the time, especially like when I do volunteer work with girls. They always be like, "Oh, you never been through anything." I don't. It's crazy how I don't show anymore the things that I've been through, and it's because of counseling, family, and just me wanting more self-awareness and working on myself, constantly working on myself. Like I still struggle with problems, but I came to a point in my life where I'm like, I'm not gonna let what happened to me ruin my life. And when I started doing volunteer work, it made me feel like I had purpose of what I went through. Like, oh, now I can understand what you guys, girls are going through. I'm not just here to make myself feel good by being a volunteer. I'm actually like wanting to help you because I've been through the same things.
And that, I think that helps you heal as well, right? Like when you see somebody who's gone through some of the same things you've gone through, and you're able to share your experiences with them and like kind of help and guide them, I think
Yeah,
I think that can help heal as well.
that's exactly why I came out with my book, because I gotten to a point where I worked really hard to get the life that I have now, and I'm so happy. I'm so blessed. I want to help girls know that no matter what you've been through, that you can get to a point of your life. Like when you're a teenager, you just think like the nothing's gonna change. It like I feel so bad for teenagers because you have no control. You know, you're not old enough to work. You have to live under your parents, and you have to stay in these situations until you're old enough to make your own decisions. So I'm like really big when it comes to teenagers. Um, so I just feel like now that I'm at the point in my life where I'm so blessed, I just want them to know that things will change eventually.
Yeah, I think that's real important, especially like, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying because I was kind of in the same position. I moved out when I was 17, and I was kind of in the same spot where I was getting like locked out of the house at night. And eventually I was like, you know what? I need to be able to do my own thing. I was so stressed out. I started developing bald spots in the back of my head from stress. And so
Mhm.
I just made that decision to just to leave and to work on myself. And it's been quite the journey also. So that's another story. So,
No, I
uh,
love hearing stories like that because I feel like everyone has a story, and if you share it, it's gonna help somebody. You know?
absolutely. And
So,
that's the purpose of the podcast, is rising above. It's, you know,
yeah,
obviously it's about overcoming. It's not about talking about these issues to dwell on it. It's about talking about them to bring awareness to things, and then showing people how you were able to overcome, you know, those circumstances.
yeah. I looked you up, so I'm like, this is pretty dope. I liked it. I like your
Well,
whole concept, and that's why I wanted to do
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
it.
Well, let's talk about your healing journey. And let's talk about from when you decided to, you said you joined the military to get away from the pimp, and what that process looked like.
Yeah, so the military definitely helped give me structure because I was so wild and I wasn't listening to anyone. I was like, no one can tell me anything. So it definitely brought me structure. And I mean, I would get in so much trouble in the military. My arms looked like Angela Bassett. So how many push-ups I did because I was constantly being dropped all the time. But it definitely gave me a sense of family, and structure and discipline. So I feel like I joined for the wrong reasons because I was running away from something. So I had so many demons when I went there, but it definitely put me on the right path of where I'm at now. And then when I moved to Maryland, I actually moved because I met my ex-husband while I was in the military. So he lived in DC, and I decided I wanted to I definitely did not want to go back to California because I was afraid of running into him. And and I loved the East Coast when I was stationed out there. So I was like, you know what, let me just try this out. And I loved it out there. And while I was there, after I got married and settled and, was doing we were very into the church again. I went to the First Baptist Church of Glenarden, I love Pastor Jenkins. He was like the best pastor I've ever heard in my life. So after that, I just started realizing that I wanted to like give back now that I'm, in a happy place. And once I started doing volunteer work, I just realized that was my calling. And it definitely helped me get on the journey of healing. At first, I went in it like, oh, I'm in a good place, so let me help you be in a good place. But it made me confront so many demons that I didn't even know I had anymore, because I just kind of buried them and tried to forget about it. And especially when I came out with my book, that was very therapeutic, because you have to keep living the moments over and over again, especially when you're, making sure the typos are there.
Right.
And it brings you back into that space over and over again. And at first there were so many times like I just gave up and stopped and didn't work on my book for months, and one time even a year. I just like, I don't want to do this anymore. But something kept pulling me back. And when I finally did it and finished it, I was at a point where I could talk about it and not even cry, or not even, like have a smile about it, because I'm like, I made it through that, and I'm in such a great place right now. So that was definitely one of the biggest things that helped me through everything.
Writing a book, what is that process like? I would like to write a book about my life too. I don't know when I will have a chance to do that. I'm pretty busy most of the time, but I know that like for me, when I tell my story, I almost have to put myself in like you said, like an emotional state. You have to get back into that place mentally. What was that like?
Well, I actually finished it during COVID. So that's really helped me out, because we couldn't do anything. We're stuck in the house anyway, I'm like, let me just do it. And then once you're in there, it's like you're there and everything else around you just disappears. And once you start going, it's like you don't want to stop once you actually get started. The hardest part, I think, is getting started. What I did, and I think is really good tip for people who want to start getting stuff, is it's so overwhelming, because you're like, where do I begin? What do I want to do? What I did is I did chapter 1. This is what I want to talk about in chapter 1, had like bullet points. Chapter 2, talk about this. And then you can see the whole story, like how it's going to start and end. Okay. And then once you get started in the stories, just start writing everything about what's going on. Then you keep going back to polish it up. Every time you read it, you just like polish it up every time, and then it develops into your final story.
So do you have any experience with writing books? Or
no? I don't. The funny thing is, I barely even like read a book in my life. Like I'm a movie person, and my biggest dream is turning my book into a movie. Like that would be my biggest dream in like ever.
Well, you're only a couple blocks away from Hollywood, so.
And I work for a music company, so you never know. I had no experience at all writing a book, so I just went on YouTube. Amazon is a really great place for authors. They give you so many tutorials and videos of how other authors did it, so I did that. I did pick up Michelle Obama's book, and Tiffany Haddish, because I know she'd been through stuff, and Cynthia Santana, I think it was the one who who shot her pimp and was in jail.
Yeah, she has a documentary too.
Yeah, so I read her book, and I just kind of gave me an idea on how books should be written, and so just doing your research like that, of finding out like who your story is kind of similar to, and how they wrote their book or came out with their stuff.
Right. So since you wrote your book, what has the feedback been like?
Okay, so with my family, of course, I knew it was going to piss my mom off. Like when I joined the military, we didn't talk for years. And then when I got married, she reached out to me, and we kind of mended our relationship. And as I got older, I kind of realized, because when my mom had me, she was in a group home for girls. So she was going through the same thing I went through with her, that she was going through with her mom. And at the time, I didn't realize it was a chain reaction. Like when you learn something from your parents, you pass it on to your kids, kind of thing.
It's like intergenerational trauma. I don't know why I
Yeah,
couldn't say that.
no, it's definitely a generational thing. And as I got older, I started, realizing where she was coming from and her mindset and all this other stuff. And it put us on and the thing about my mom's side of the family, they don't like to talk about it. They just sweep everything under the rug and pretend like nothing ever happened. So that's what we did. We were just so happy to be back in each other's life that we never talked about it. So my book was the first time I said anything about it after us. If she knew I was coming out with a book, and she was like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you." But I don't think she knew I was going to say everything and how I felt. And I felt like I painted her in a better light than what it really was.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely put a strain on our relationship. But at the same time, I have been getting so many feedback about how my book has helped them because they've been through certain things, and even certain people said that it felt like they were reading their life story.
Wow.
So when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, okay, maybe it is worth it. But then again, it's like I put out so much personal information about myself, and I'm just getting started, so I haven't reached the point where I'm like, okay, it's worth it yet. Like I said, certain times when I talk to people, I'm like, okay, maybe it is worth it, but I just haven't reached there yet because I'm just beginning. And like I said, I did put out so much personal information about myself.
Well, I think yeah, I mean, that's definitely a difficult thing to do, right? Because now everybody can just read everything about you. But at
Yeah,
the same time, like you said, so many people can probably relate to a lot of the things you've gone through just in so many different aspects, right?
yeah,
Like I'm sure I can read your story and be like, wow, I can relate to that, even though I was never under the control of a pimp or anything like that. But I'm sure like with some of the difficulties with your
yeah.
mom, I'm sure I can relate to stuff like that. And yeah, yeah, I could imagine that would probably cause some difficulties in the family dynamics.
Yeah, definitely. And then some other people were just like saying that it was very hard for them to even get through, like my nieces, because I'm
Mm,
so close to them. And when I was going through that stuff, they were babies. So they were like, I cannot believe you went through all that stuff. Like, and they
wow.
remember certain parts of like when I was drunk and I forgot to pick her up from school, but she had no idea the whole story of what happened around that stuff. So yeah, so it's definitely mixed emotions from people, but overall, it definitely has been more positive than negative.
Have you had great sales on the book? Has it blown up? What's the expectations?
Well, I self-published, and I didn't honestly like. I never did my research about what to do. Like I said, I just went through Amazon and just kind of did my own publishing.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like I did well for self-publishing, not having any, you know, like huge following. I just had my friends and family.
Right.
Um, and my page on Instagram, I started that from scratch, while after I finished the book. So I do feel like it is growing right now. And I definitely get a lot of feedback more from strangers than my family. Yeah, I feel like it is definitely doing well. Like it's definitely growing. I feel like that.
Well, that is awesome. I think that's beautiful, and it's kind of crazy too. I mean, because you're a self-published author, and I came across your book on I'm assuming Instagram. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's how I came across you, and I'm on the East Coast. I'm in
Yeah.
Michigan, and you're in California. Like
So
that's
it's getting
insane.
somewhere.
That's insane. At least like 20 people might see this and they might buy your book. So, um, yeah, that's crazy. I gotta remember what I was gonna say now. And that's one thing though. I kind of got some negative feedback from my podcast when I started the podcast by putting out my story and what some of the things I've gone through, and talking to like my family after I put it out. Some of them were upset that I had said so much, and they were upset that I painted them in a kind of a negative light. But like you said, I was pretty fair about it. Like I didn't try to. I made them look good as far
Right.
as far as some of the things I had said. So I can understand that, and that's got to be kind of frustrating as well, I'm sure.
I feel like you have to speak your truth, because when you have podcasts or when you're in a public eye, like, or even coming out with a book, like people don't want to read fake stuff, you
Right.
know? And I feel like um, so many people do that. They cover up, like, celebrities, when they come out with their stories, they don't tell the whole truth because they don't want to paint themselves in a bad light. Like,
Right.
I put all of my stuff that I've done. And I knew it was some people were gonna be like, what, she did that? I can't believe she. So I was a little embarrassed about putting so much out about myself, but you have to speak your truth. I mean, that's the only way you're gonna touch people, is
Well,
sharing your real story.
and then you can't be ashamed of the things that you've done wrong also. Like
Exactly.
that's another thing I talk a lot about on the podcast is like you may fuck up like really bad, like you might do
Exactly.
something terrible, but just because you made that decision doesn't define who you are as a person, you know,
Exactly.
like you did that 10 years ago. That doesn't mean that's who you are today.
Exactly. Yeah, I used to be embarrassed about it when I was younger, but I'm like, you know what? I love the person that I am today. Like, I wouldn't change anything. And I love the certain people that I've met. And had I have a chance to go back and start it over again, I would still go through what I went through, because I wouldn't know some of the people that I know now.
Right.
And like, I wouldn't be the person that I am. So it definitely put me on a journey. Like, even where I'm at now, like, I'm the CFO of a music company in LA, and I didn't go to college for that at all, and I ended up in a CFO position, and that's just through me working my way up through accounting, wanting to learn everything around me, and my job just, my boss just loving that energy about me. So
So
I
what
feel like,
you're a
Mhm.
CFO of a music production company?
No, yeah, so it's a music company in LA,
Okay.
and I just do the finances for the company. So I don't do anything with the music side, but I just run the company's finances. And I got that job because I used to be an accountant for HOAs in Maryland. And how I got that job is I actually delivered printing supplies when I first moved to Maryland. I was, going to different companies, and they just loved my personality, and they were like, "Hey, we got a receptionist job at the front." And I lasted there only a year because I wanted to learn accounting when I saw them, and I was like, "Ooh, that looks for me," because I wanted something stable. I was so used to bouncing from home to home. I loved how accounting 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2. You can't change that,
Are you
So
sure? In today's math, I'm not so sure.
right, true. So that's what I loved about accounting, is it was so stable for me. And even having a career in accounting, like, you're always, somebody's going to need it. Um,
Right.
so I wanted to get into that field just to have stability. And when I got into that, I grew into the position that I'm at. So I also teach girls that you don't need a fancy degree to make a life out of yourself. It's whatever you want to do, like, you can achieve that.
Well, and
And
I
then I do feel like so many girls who have been through what I went through, um, either end up as strippers or on drugs or, prostitution. And I feel like I used that sexual energy and turned it into something positive. So about 6 years ago, I started a company, which is a sexercise company. And I do that on the side too. So
what is a sexercise?
so it's a company for couples. I had a studio before COVID. I had a studio where couples would come in and they would do partner exercises, like, and while learning different sexual positions. So say, for instance, I teach you, let's just say, missionary, or not, reverse cowgirl, where the girl's on top from the back. So there are certain muscles a woman has to use while she's on top. So I would teach them that position, and then also the exercises like squats, and it would be partner workout. So while she's doing a squat, he's doing a sit up at the same time. So it's
That's
like,
this seems so practical.
no, it's actually, I at first, when I came out with it, people were like, "What?" Like, no, and it actually blew up. I was featured in articles. Somebody wrote a blog about it, so it was featured in a magazine, and I was getting people flying in from the East Coast coming to,
Wow.
when they came into California, they were like, oh, I want to take your class. So it was doing, before COVID, it was doing pretty good. Now I just do pop-up events. And I'm doing one for Valentine's Day coming up soon. And it's actually online too. So if anybody wants to do it from the East Coast, you can see it online. But it's something I wanted couple, because I feel like there are so many things breaking couples up in the world. I wanted something where they can go, they can work out together, they can learn some new moves to spice up in their bedroom. And it's fun. And then I do exercises that helps them talk about topics that they would never talk about, and then get that communication going.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be real vulnerable. Like, right? Because you're probably in some of the most vulnerable positions you could be in.
You know what? People think that, but no, because when you go in, everything is done like an exercise. Like I don't have people, grinding on each other and doing
Right,
that. It's done as an exercise. So if you just go into like a gym and like you take one of those workout classes and it's partner based, that's all it is.
right,
Because that's what sex is. It's an exercise.
right.
And then I have them doing yoga moves, to stretch out their muscles and stuff like that. So it's not like people. I do get that. Like people, do you have any private classes? And I'm like, I'm telling you, I can do it. It's not like that at all. It's comfortable enough to do it in front of your family.
So is this something that it has been done before? Is there other like I guess gyms type exercise places? Where did you get the idea from?
So how I got the idea was there wasn't anything when I was doing it. So what happened was this is when before I met my fiance, I was, dating a lot in California, and I would meet, models and actors and stuff like that. And I started dating this actor, and I was very intimidated because I'm like, his body is so amazing. I'm pretty sure he's
Is
been
it
with so
was,
many different women.
was he a well-known actor?
I mean, he's been on some stuff like people do. He's not like an A-list, but like like my friends knew who he was
Okay.
and stuff like that. So when I started dating him, like I said, I was intimidated, and I'm like, you know what? I wonder, because I loved pole aerobics. I always thought that was fun. So I'm like, I wonder if there's somewhere you can go where you can learn some sex moves while getting in shape, just like pole aerobics. And I couldn't find anything. And that's how I came up with the idea. I'm like, you know what? Let me create something. And at first it just started, I was like, I just wanted to do a video, like a fitness video. And then it ended up turning into like a studio, and it just grew from there. So I've been doing it for 6 years, and
Wow.
I love the way couples come in and they laugh and they have fun. Like everybody laughs throughout the whole thing, because you are a little vulnerable just coming in there learning about sex in front of other people.
Right.
But no, it's definitely I love it.
That's actually a pretty good idea. I mean, when you said it at first, I'm like, huh, that sounds it sounds interesting, but that is a great idea because you're kind of doing something that's practical. You're not just like going to like a gym, like a Planet Fitness or whatever, and just lifting or doing like some sort of circuit. You're using muscles that you would typically use outside of in normal day life.
Yeah, no, I don't care how much you work out. When you get in certain positions, it takes a lot of stamina to stay in that position.
For
So,
sure.
I mean, I've been in the best shape of my life in certain positions. I'm like out of breath, and I'm like, okay.
I was I lift weights all the time, and one day I was doing a bar workout with my wife,
Hmm.
and I was like, wow, like I can squat a lot of weight, but doing this bar workout, I felt so weak. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Like it's those tiny muscles that you don't think about and you don't typically use.
Yeah, and not only that, it opens your eye, because certain people don't want to watch porn to learn different things. And when you've been with somebody for so long, it's kind of you start doing the same things over and over again. So this class not only like helps you work out together, because that's all it is a fun class where couples can work out together, and but you're learning something new to spice things up, especially if you've been with somebody for so long.
Right, right. So I'm assuming during COVID, you had to shut down the studio.
Mhm.
Is it back? It's not back up and running.
Well,
What's going on
actually,
with?
things happen for a reason. I always try to look at the positive side. So I had the studio, it shut down, but then I was like, you know what? Let me use this time to focus on writing my book. And that's what I did. And then I realized I was making more money when I just did pop-up events instead of having a studio. And, sometimes I would even have, classes or anything going on. So you're wasting money every time you don't have classes. And then I realized, I was making more money when I would do pop-up events. And I get emails all the time, like, when are you coming? I actually just got one from New York. When are you coming to New York? And stuff like that. So I would love to grow where I can just go through different states and do classes. But I have so much going on, one thing at a time.
So do you have any kids or anything?
No, but I'm engaged and we're about to get married in August, and he has 2 boys. I never wanted kids. I think from what I've seen growing up, and I don't know. I just feel like if I ever did want a kid, I would want to adopt, just because
Okay.
I've seen how many kids need homes and stuff like that. So I'm like, when I just want to live my life and just enjoy it, because I'm finally at a place where I am happy. So I just want to stay in this moment for a little bit before I take on the responsibility of raising another life. But yeah, when I do finally want to, I want to adopt.
I think that's a smart choice. Because a lot of like when people have like rough lives, sometimes they think that like having a kid will make them happy.
Yes.
And then they end up screwing up their kid the way they were screwed up. And it's an endless cycle. So I think that's a real important thing to know.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why I didn't want to raise a kid, because I didn't want me doing the same thing my mom did, my grandmother did. So, but now I'm at the point where I'm just enjoying life, and I love the way things are right now, and I don't want to change it for now. But when I do get that little, if my biological clock ever starts ticking, it'll be to help another kid, because there are so many kids that need homes.
That's awesome, especially in California, right?
Yeah, probably.
What is it like in California right now? I hear crazy things about California and after COVID and whatnot. W-
I mean, I talk. It's no different than the East Coast. I mean, I still talk to all my friends. I feel like, I mean, of course, the mask on and mask off kind of thing is crazy, but I think it's just, to me, what's crazy is how fast the world can change off
Mm,
of something. It's scary almost.
it really is.
Yeah. So that's the only thing I think about is, dang, our whole lives could just disappear just like that you know if something
Y-
major happened.
Yeah, and it kind of that's one thing I was talking to somebody on the podcast about recently. Is they grew up in a small town and they were talking about I think I had mentioned something about like grocery shopping. Like when I grocery shop, I don't go to the store. I just order it and I go pick it up because I'm lazy. Um, but when you're in a small town, you can't really do that. You got to go grocery shopping. It takes time, and um, with COVID, it was and still because of COVID and all the like the shortages and the
Yeah.
lack of having things. Um, there's certain things you can't get, and then you got to like um, it's just something you never thought about. You never thought about like having a lack of supplies.
hmm Yeah, I felt
Yeah.
like it didn't matter how much money you had, it affected you somehow, like whether you didn't have, the movies or the roles, like everything shut down. So it affected
Right.
everyone. And I
Yeah.
feel like the people who, you know, didn't have that much money probably dealt with it better, because they're like, oh, I'm used to this, I'm used to struggling all the time. No, I'm saying, like, I struggled growing up. So when we didn't have certain things, I'm like, we're not gonna die. I can
Yeah.
survive. I've been off of this for a while. So yeah.
Yeah, because you know how bad life can be. So like
Exactly. So it was nothing to me.
you're a long ways from that, and once you do get to that point, you're like, okay, now it's bad.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I know what that is, and that was nothing. And not only that, I felt like it gave people a chance to spend quality time with your family, because I felt we were working, like I was working so much, and I didn't spend that much time with my family, and it made me realize, like, dang, we actually do spend so much time at work away, So when we had to quarantine, and that's when I was first dating my fiance, and we were like with each other 24/7. I'm like, this is amazing. Like we really, really get to know each other and spend this quality time together. And it was,
That
cool.
is that's awesome because a lot of people got divorced during COVID.
Yeah, I heard. I heard. So,
Yeah, that's one thing COVID did for us too, because my wife and I both work at General Motors, and so like we work all the time, just
yeah,
all the time. It's like 2 Saturdays on, one off, and it's like that till the end of time. And we work a lot of hours too. But COVID, kind of halted all of that, and we got to stay home. And we're like, you know what? Like, let's take this time to do things to our house. So we like remodeled our whole basement while we were laid off, or not laid off, but stuck home, and
mhm.
it was just fun to spend time together. It was good. It was good
Yeah,
for everybody.
yeah. I think, yeah, if you learned how to use that time to do projects and stuff together, then it's great.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you or your book?
Well, it's pretty easy, chasingblackbutterflies.com, or my Instagram, my Facebook is all Chasing Black Butterflies. And also there's a link to Evaleros, which is the sexercise company.
Okay.
It's on the Chasing Black Butterflies too. So
Okay. And I will be sure to put all of that in the show notes. So if anybody has any questions, or they want to go look you up or find your book or look
okay.
up your sexercise class, they can do that. And how often do you do that? The online videos?
The sexercise?
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm doing one right now for Valentine's Day. So actually I'll send you the link. You and your wife should do
Okay.
the online one. It'll be fun. It's gonna be February 17th at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
Okay.
So yeah, I will. I do them like occasionally. Like I don't know, Haha Davis. No, not Haha Davis. I'm sorry. What's his name? Oh, Kev on Stage. He's a
Mm.
comedian.
Oh,
So his wife actually just had me do a podcast last year, so that was fun. So
that's
yeah, I
cool.
do get hit up by certain people, and they'll have me do like on their podcasts and stuff like that, like different classes. But
That's cool. That is really cool. And being in Hollywood, I'm sure you run into people all the time, right?
well, yeah, when it first came out, like I had this one of the girls from Wags. Do you remember that?
No.
It was a TV show about not basketball wives, but it was I forgot what Wags said. The wives and girlfriends of sports or something like that.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, it was a reality TV show that was on. But yeah, she posted my video, and I had different people come to the class, so it was pretty cool.
That is cool. That is cool. Well, I am really honored to be able to talk to you. Your story is crazy. I really want to order your book. I'm going to today. As soon as I'm off this video, I'm going to order it.
Thank
So
you.
I would highly recommend everybody order your book, and especially because you're a self-published author. I think that's amazing. I think, because you put the work in yourself, and I mean, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do at all. It's not easy to sit here and reflect on everything you've gone through, let alone try to put it in like chronological order and find a way for it to work in a book. And you did that.
Yeah,
And so I commend you for that. It's amazing.
thank you. Yeah, I feel like if you wrote a book and you only sold one copy, you should be proud of yourself, because it's very hard to write that. Like, not like, I think it was like 1% of people who want to write a book actually do it or something like that. So yeah, it's very hard, and you should be proud of yourself if you even finish it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's one thing like I said, I've always wanted to, and I've started like writing stuff, and it's just like one of those things, like you don't know how to go about it. So I was like, you know what? I'll just do a podcast. It's easier for now, and then eventually I will write it, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, even doing a podcast, I mean, that's hard. I mean, you should be proud of yourself for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you have to share something that's vulnerable, it's not easy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, again, thank you for doing this. And real quick before we wrap this up, do you have any words of like inspiration you want to add to the podcast?
Just that no matter what you're going through, it's never too late to turn your life around. I don't care what have you done. Everyone has a chance. As long as you're still breathing, you have a chance to turn your life around and make something out of it. And I
Awesome.
just do want to say thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's really been nice to getting to know you, and I love what you're doing with your podcast. So keep it going.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's again been a great honor being able to talk to you. And I look forward to possibly talking to you again someday.
Sure, definitely.
All right. Well, you have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Bye.